Nashville Predators finally back in the win column. Big 5-2 win over the Winnipeg Jets tonight. Full breakdown of the game coming up today on the Locked On Predators podcast. Plus, Roman Josi makes some team history. We'll give some good kudos to him. And who is our Preds player of the week? Anne's got her cookies ready to go. We will give them out today on the Locked On Preds podcast.
You're Locked On Predators, your daily podcast on the Nashville Predators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yeah, this is the Locked On Predators podcast. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. I'm Nick Morgan. I'm a writer and editor on theforecheck.com, and I have a partner in crime who is finally happy to be back in the W column.
Oh my goodness. Doesn't it just feel so much better? Yes, I am Ann Kimmel. I am a writer at ontheforecheck.com, and I am thrilled with the results of this game.
It's certainly more fun to rant and rave about good stuff and good hockey than it is to nitpick against all the things that pissed us off for the past week or so.
That's right. Yep. It's good to get back into the positive vibe.
Yes, and what a good way to end the week. It is Friday, so we end on a jolly note. Big news. Predators beat the Winnipeg Jets 5-2. Their first win in 5 games. 4-game losing streak is over. And this is a game the Preds controlled from start to finish. Went up 3-0 after the first period. Went back and forth all the way. And then Tanner Jeannot put things away with an empty net goal at the end. 5-2 was the final score. And start us off, as we do always. What is your one word to describe last night's game?
My one word is going to make me sound super international and classy, maybe. My one word is hygge. Hygge. It is a Danish word. It's about a Danish lifestyle kind of. It's the feeling of coziness and contentment evoked by simple comforts such as being wrapped in a blanket, having good conversation, eating good food. And I think that John Hines just evoked some good hygge with the Predators by giving them a rest day. I think the rest day was key to the Predators' success. And so that's my one word. I picture Matt Duchene and Mikael Granlund in big fluffy blankets, sipping tea with saucers and just reading like some sort of deep philosophical book and just kind of finding their groove again. So I think that this is what the key to success was.
Is that Danish Zen is basically what you're saying?
I think that's exactly what it all boils down to, is Danish Zen.
Like I picture John Hines walking around with like crystals and like healing the energy, but like in a Danish way.
Yeah, in a big, fluffy, soft bathrobe.
Okay.
Yeah. Don't go too far with the visual.
No, I
don't develop it too far.
I want to know more about hygge.
Yeah, hygge. Yeah. Oh, it's a whole thing. It's like a real thing.
Okay. I'll have to look that up some other time.
Okay.
But my one word is kind of along the same lines, and it's centered. Because like when either you're going to like therapy or like you're in yoga class or something like that, everybody always tells you find your center. Like find a balance, find your center. Yeah. That's to me seems like what the Predators did tonight. And it was, maybe less about finding Zen because we did see Tanner Jeannot punch a guy in the face a bunch. But
that may be his Zen, though.
It might be his Zen.
Yeah.
It was certainly fun to watch that Zen. I will say that. No, but it was more about the Predators kind of getting back to their identity, because what have we talked about the past couple of shows? And it seems like the Predators had kind of gone away from their identity during that 4-game skid. And tonight we saw all the things that kind of made the Predators so successful this season. They prioritized physical forechecking. They kind of took more high quality shots. They just put pucks on net from high danger areas instead of kind of, overthinking, maybe waiting for one more pass, and solid all around play in the defensive zone with, a couple of hiccups mixed in there,
A couple.
which I'm sure we'll talk about in a little bit. But, that to me tonight kind of looked like the Predators going back to what made them so successful before this skid.
Yeah, this was not a game that felt like a disconnect. In these last 4 games, especially I would say the Buffalo and Vancouver game felt a little bit like record scratch disconnect because it just was not Nashville Predator hockey. It wasn't the hockey that we're used to seeing. They couldn't get to their style of play. And I would agree with you. I really feel like, you talk about centered. I feel like they kind of landed back in their bodies and they landed back into what has, made them so successful. And I think you hit the nail on the head with that for sure. I do think the return of Mattias Ekholm is something that we need to talk about. So how do you feel like his return sort of affected the game and the team?
Well, just look at how the defense played tonight. I mean, they were certainly a little bit more sturdy, I would say.
Yes.
And, Ekholm, maybe not quite the offensive production this year that he's had in past years. And I think this goes back to him maybe playing a little bit more of a different role. And I think the rise of Alexander Carrier has certainly, I think, allowed him to play kind of a little more of a sit back support role. But he was still like playing 23, 24 minutes a night for the Preds. And he's playing in a lot of different situations too. And, anytime you lose a guy that plays that much for you, you
Yeah.
kind of start to struggle, even though Matt Benning and Mark Borowiecki and some of these other guys have played very, very well this season. It's not the same as a Mattias Ekholm who's playing very, a variety of situations and playing a lot of different ice times, thirds year communication off. And you saw
Yes.
him back. There was a lot more structure. There was, I would say like defense looked a little bit more sound
Yes.
overall. So yeah, I mean, I think that absolutely played a role in him being back. Another guy to bring up, Matt Tennyson.
Yes. How
That's
about that?
Yeah, up and down debut tonight, but I think overall, and I was impressed with the minutes he gave.
I was too. I hated to see him head to the penalty box. I know that was something that I think even he was very, a little bit frustrated and disappointed with. But for, getting some NHL ice time, I feel like he really did well. He had an assist. I think he was doing what they're coaching them to do. And you're seeing him kind of step into that role. I thought he did pretty darn well, all things considered. It was the second period was a little bit of a cluster, like again, no snacks in the sin bin, and he kind of got caught up in that rotation. But overall, yeah, I thought that was a solid outing for him for sure.
Yeah, the Luke Cunnin goal, which he got the assist on, he shot
Yes.
that right at Cunning's stick. Tennyson shot it right at Cunning's stick.
Yes.
And it was
Yes.
like a perfect play. And it was a veteran play too, because Matt Tennyson is 31 years old. He's played with a lot of different NHL teams. He has, just about 150 games of NHL experience. So he's a veteran. He's a guy who's played around the NHL before. You kind of compare him to a guy like Matt Luff, where, he's
Yes.
in Milwaukee, he's on a minor league contract, but you brought him up and he knows what he's doing. There's not really, an adjustment period, like, maybe some guys making their NHL debuts. This is a veteran that knows how to play a role and step in. And I was actually very happy to see him in the lineup tonight. What was one of our points yesterday when we gave our 5 tips on how to get the Predators out of the slide? It was look for opportunities to put some fresh blood on the ice. And they did that. They didn't take my Phil Tomasino suggestion, but
Which was disappointing. I just want to say he still did okay, but I think you were
played
onto
a
something.
great game. Yeah.
Yes.
But I was happy to see maybe Tennyson get a chance, and Philip Myers, who maybe this is a different conversation for next week. But that he kind of maybe just needed some time not
Yes.
playing, maybe to recenter himself.
There you go.
So I was happy to see Tennyson, and yeah, that was certainly a big boost for the Preds. A lot more to talk about this game. Big night for Roman Josi. Plus,
Yes.
remember we mentioned the 5 things we talked about yesterday for the Preds, how to fix them. How many other things did they follow tonight? Spoiler alert, it's actually quite a few of them. So hey, we like to think we got the win. First, though, let's give a shout out to our friends over at Built Bar. It's the new year, which means a lot of you probably have some New Year's resolutions. If yours is about getting fit or eating healthier, make sure Built Bar is part of your plan. Built Bar is a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, depending on what candy bar you have. In some cases, it's maybe tastes even better than a candy bar. Eating healthy can sometimes feel a little bit boring. By week 3, you're thinking, I really need some chocolate. Built Bar satisfies that craving. It's covered in 100% real chocolate, and there's so many flavors to choose from. Also, there's coconut almond, peanut butter brownie, raspberry, cookies and cream, salted caramel, mint brownie, and many, many more. In fact, Built always coming out with new limited time flavors, so be sure to check out what they have. All Built Bars are low in calories, low in sugar, low in net carbs, but high in protein. Here's an offer. Go to built.com right now. Use promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at built.com.
All right, Nick. So we talked on yesterday's show about some tips that we had for the Nashville Predators, things that we felt like they needed to improve upon. What were some of the other ones that you saw a difference in tonight's game?
I think the biggest one is we're talking about, hey, think less, shoot more.
Yes.
Just get pucks on net. Don't look for that sneaky extra play. Just get pucks on net and good things happen. And we saw that a bunch tonight. Ryan Johansen, just kind of taking it into the slot and shooting it. You saw it. I think it was Joe Rexroad said on Twitter, and it's like it looked like Hellebuck legitimately was not expecting Johansen to shoot it.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of goes back to, just shoot the puck, get it on net. If you're in a high danger area already, so why not just take a shot? And that's something I think the Predators prioritize tonight. There's a lot of times in the past couple of games where they'd get it into the slot and then, maybe try to make one more pass or try to make one move past the defender. They'd get caught. They'd turn it over, something like that. But tonight, as soon as they got the puck in those high danger spots, they shot.
Yeah. And it makes a huge difference. And I think part of what feeds into that, part of what was the problem in that 4-game streak when they sort of got away from that and they started to overthink is when they're not playing that identity hockey, when they're not doing things like getting on the forecheck, when they're not, they don't have the net front presence that we're used to seeing from them. I think then they do start to overthink it. I think kind of they're in their groove. They find their zen when they're doing what has been so successful for them. And to see them get back to that tonight was great. There were a couple times where I was like, ooh, nope. Shouldn't have tried that. Should have just shot that. But overall, like you said, the goal by Luke Cunnin was a great example of you've got somebody just put it on net. Put it on net. Ryan Johansen did the same thing. And so I think that was just a huge shift over the course of the last 4 games to tonight. Definitely a key one.
What did you notice? Was there anything that stood out to you that they did different tonight than they did during that 4-game skid?
I definitely think net front presence, like I just talked about, was a little bit better. It seemed like they were more present quicker. There weren't as many opportunities for a Hellebuck to see the puck maybe as what we were used to. They had some more screens going on and that kind of thing. So that was good. I do think one of the things, this wasn't a game where they don't have things to work on. And one of the things that I noticed in this game that I can't quite find the sweet spot on, and maybe you'll have insight into this, Nick, is the third period, sometimes I feel like the Predators turtle up a little bit too soon and sort of play back and maybe not play as aggressive. That was better tonight, I think. But still, I think they're still struggling to sort of find that where do we keep playing aggressively and where do we protect a lead? And I will tell you that a 2-goal lead against the Winnipeg Jets, the way that, things have been going lately, felt a little bit uncomfortable for me, for a while.
Yeah, especially when it was 4-2 in those last 5 minutes. And
Ugh.
Winnipeg was really pushing. There was
Yes.
one play, I can't remember who shot it. It might have been Adam Lowry, where the puck actually got past Saros and just kind of trickled it through the
Yes.
blue crease. No one saw it, but it luckily just trickled like wide, like it just kept going.
Yes.
But it was one of those where that could have easily slid in the net. Or if there was a Jets player around there, that is an easy tap in. So there's certainly a fair share of moments where you're like, oh,
No.
this
Yeah,
could
it's
be a
like you
lot.
see yourself screaming in slow motion, like, no, yeah, I know exactly the play you're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. The other thing for me is I think there's still a number of giveaways that the Predators have to
Yeah.
work on. I think tonight it was less about overthinking and more about just sloppy play a little
Hmm.
bit. And I know the Jets are a physical team. 5-on-5, they're a team that's frustrating. Um,
Yes.
they kind of force you into a lot of mistakes, and I think we saw that tonight. But those giveaways certainly led to a lot of Jets chances. Juuse Saros, we got to mention him because, yeah, he had another unbelievable performance
Yes.
tonight.
Yeah, he was a bacon saver again tonight, and a couple of the last 4 games, there were some saves that we kind of thought maybe normally he would get, and he didn't. Not that he has been bad by any means, but just there's been a couple times where maybe he didn't look like he was playing right at his top level, and I felt like tonight was one of those games where everybody can do a collective thank you, UC Saros, because there were some key saves he made at key points for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Another big guy we got to celebrate tonight, Roman Josi. Not
Yes.
only the first star of the game, but when he assisted on Mikael Granlund's goal, that was his 356th career assist. That made him the Predators' all-time leader in assists, which is kind of crazy when you think about it. And then for good measure, he added another assist on the next goal. So
Yes.
yeah, Roman Josi is the Predators' all-time assist leader, forever enshrined as a Nashville Predators legend. And it's kind of crazy, Anne, because I posted this on Twitter earlier in the game tonight that it seems like Roman Josi was just kind of overlooked for so much of his career. He was with Shea Weber at first, and they were just kind of getting over the Ryan Suter breakup. And then, PK Subban kind of dominated the headlines in
Hmm.
Nashville for a long time. Just because he was such a name player around the league when the Predators brought him in. But I think really these past 2-3 years, Roman Josi has kind of gotten a chance to be in that spotlight and finally get some recognition for just how good he's been, not just these past couple of years, because these past couple of years have been career best seasons, but how consistently good he's been his entire career for Nashville.
Yeah, and I think you hit the nail on the head when you talk about things like, he was paired up with Shea Weber and you had PK Subban come in and Roman Josi is one of those people who his personality is maybe not going to be the thing that draws the attention, but his play certainly is. And if you look at the statistics, David Legwand, it took him 956 games to get that many assists. Roman Josi did it in 720 and he's still going. I mean, this is somebody who quietly, I mean, like you said, great last couple years, Norris Trophy winner, but this is somebody who has consistently been contributing and been a solid player for this franchise and, going to continue to be, thank goodness.
Yeah. And I think a lot of the overshadow maybe gave him some unfair doubt a
Hmm.
little bit, because it seems like, when people talked about how good Roman Josi was, at first it was just because he was playing with Shea Weber.
Yes.
And then even the last couple of years, it's, oh yeah, he was Ryan Ellis. I remember
Right.
listening to a couple of podcasts during Roman Josi's Norris year, where people like, well, Ryan Ellis was really the workhorse of that pairing.
Yes.
And now you're seeing him finally get, I think, the national recognition around the league that he deserves. Not only just with the Norris Trophy from 2 years ago, but I think when you talk to just people around the league, they're in agreement that Josi's one of the elite defensemen in the NHL.
Yes, and it's like you said, it is about time that he gets that recognition. Coming up, speaking of recognition, though, we have some really important recognition coming up. The most important, like Norris Trophy, great and all, Calder, lovely, but who does not want a plate of Duchess cookies more?
It does not, Stanley Cup, Duchess cookies.
That's right. That's right.
Those are the top
Right
two.
there. Like
Yeah.
if you win the Stanley Cup and then fill it with Duchess cookies, you are at the pinnacle of life. But before we award our Duchess cookies, we do want to let you know about our friends at BetOnline. They want to wish you a happy new betting year as we continue our march to the playoffs and beyond. BetOnline is the #1 spot for all the best sports wagering action for 2022. It's a new year. They have a new updated website. They have mobile, and you can sign up today. You receive a 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Use our promo code Locked On to get that. From football, basketball, they have hockey, of course. They have boxing, UFC. They have your favorite Vegas casino games, everything you could want to bet. They have all these amazing offers available for 2022. It's the fastest and easiest way to bet all your favorite sports. Bet online where the game starts.
Yeah, and before we get to our players of the week, one other player that I kind of want to recognize, Tanner Jeannot. He had that fight. Yeah. Well, here's the thing. He had that fight in that first period. And you kind of heard some of the players after the game, Roman Josi was talking about it and just kind of how much that pumps up the team. Fighting is kind of, a weird subject for people to talk about, but how much does that fire up a team, especially in a physical divisional game, when you're seeing one of your guys go out, a guy who's got 7 inches on Tanner Jeannot, and Janeau just manhandles him easily.
It's so like I struggle with this because I don't think that, I don't advocate for fighting as a big part of hockey. I also studied MMA, and so I appreciate a good fight. And I did an article several years ago about just the physics of fighting on the ice. It's a whole different ballgame than what a regular stand-up fight is. So the skill that it takes to fight as well as Tanner Jeannot does is actually remarkable. But it really, you think this is this young player who has zero fear. Like, the people that he will take on anybody that looks cross-eyed at him. And I can understand, again, hesitate to like really advocate for fighting, but I can really understand how watching him take on somebody like Stasny or, anybody else that he's taken on really fires the team up. Like, this is the guy that's willing to go to the mat for you. And I think that's such a key component to the identity that has been part of the success of the team this year is just they're all on the same page and they're willing to fight for one another. And so I think it is a big, I think it has a big effect on the team when he's willing to just go rounds, although it doesn't usually take multiple rounds. He usually wraps up pretty quick.
Yeah. If you're on another NHL team, please don't fight Tanner Jeannot. It's not going to work out for you.
No, don't poke the bear.
Yeah. And look, I enjoy a good hockey fight. I kind of think the whole let's drop the gloves at this moment with your 2 enforcers and then let them skate off. I think that part of it's kind of dumb, but I do love like a heat of the moment kind of fight, if that makes sense, where there's like a rough play or, sort of a shady situation there. And then just 2 guys naturally drop the gloves. The one thing that I have noticed this year, as opposed to past years, it does seem like there are more Preds literally fighting for each other.
Yes.
And when I say that, I think back to some of those Peter Laviolette, like the later years when we kind of talked about them being like more skilled and less gritty. You'd see somebody like, well, I guess the perfect example would be the Victor Arvidsson, Robert Bortuzzo play, where you would see something like that, and the Predators would kind of skate around and
Chirp.
look after Arvidsson, but nobody would go after the person that just hit their teammate. And that was one situation. But I noticed there's a lot of that going on, and it seems like this past year, like tonight when Juuse Saros got sprayed by Kyle Connor, all 5 Preds who were on the ice were right on Connor's tail. Like but it goes back to fighting for your teammates and being like, no, we're a brotherhood. And, if you mess with one of us, you're going to piss the rest of the team off. Not more of this, oh, well, you shouldn't have done that. This is more of a no. If you try to get under our skin, we're going to come right back and pop you in the face. And I think that does speak to I guess, the growth of this team.
Yeah, it's part of, again, the whole fighting thing, but it's part of the magic of this season, I think, is that you are seeing, it's just more evidence of this team being willing to have each other's back, and they're playing as a team, and everybody's pulling in the same direction, and everybody's bought in. And I think that consistent across the board buy-in is something that was missing at the end of the Peter Laviolette era. And I think it's something that John Hynes has worked and worked and worked for. And it's great to see the results finally paying off.
Yeah. Well, it's Fridays, and so let's end on a sweet note.
That's right. So on Fridays, I bake Duchess cookies, my great-grandmother's recipe, and send them to the player that I think deserves a plate of cookies because, frankly, food is love. Let's just all own that.
It's love, yes.
And this one, it was like, it's always a little bit difficult. And I always say, this is not a participation trophy. If you earn the cookies, you get the cookies. And so I am gifting more cookies to one Mr. Roman Josi. Roman Josi is just, we've talked about it in this episode. We've talked about it in previous episodes. Roman Josi really is such a key to the success of this team. He's a quiet leader. And I think just to celebrate him breaking David Legwand's record for number of assists for the Predators, I think that just deserves a plate of delicious cookies. And so, Roman Josi, I am sending you a plate of Duchess cookies.
Yeah, definitely, I think deserves it for a lot of different reasons.
Yes.
Not only, also the fun thing about that too was after the game in his post-game press conference, somebody pointed out Roman Josi's first ever assist was on a David Legwand goal.
I love that. Is that not so great?
It's a good full circle thing. And actually, like, Josi was actually delighted when somebody brought that up, talked about how much, Legwand meant for him as a young player when he first got on the team and what he did as kind of like the first long-term player for the Predators. So it was cool to see Josi kind of reflect on that, and it's a cool full circle moment.
I love it.
Yeah, for sure. So the Predators this weekend have a game against the Detroit Red Wings. That is at Bridgestone Arena. And then a number of big games again next week. So on Monday, we will preview the week ahead. We'll recap the Red Wings games and a couple of topics that I think you guys will be interested in. One, we will revisit the Ryan Ellis trade now that Philip Myers was a healthy scratch again. Cody Glass is still in the minors. So, yeah, I feel like it's a pretty good time to go back and reflect on that. I'm sure we have some feelings. Also coming up is a way too early look at the Predators trade deadline. Does your Forsberg opinions change at all? Plus, if the Predators were to bring some people in, who would they target? Would you go big? Would you go small? Would you pretty much keep the team as is? Lots of thoughts on that, so stay tuned for that. In the meantime, Anne, where can the fine people find your work?
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com, and you can find me on Twitter at ANK_Mama on Ice.
You can find my work at ontheforecheck.com as well. Follow me on Twitter at _NSMorgan. Also, be sure to follow the podcast at LO_Predators. Let us know if there's ever a topic you want us to discuss, or if you have thoughts on any of the topics we've discussed in our show or are teasing ahead to. We'll be happy to talk about it. That is going to do it for us today on Locked On Predators. Thank you for making us your first listen of the day. Have a good weekend, everybody. We'll see you on Monday.